My name is Kathleen. Standing in the grand ballroom of the Rosewood Country Club, I watched as the shock and disbelief washed over my family's faces. The once smug expressions of my father, Robert, my mother, Laura, my sister, Victoria, and my brother, Henry, were now replaced with a mixture of horror and confusion. The large screen behind me displayed my portrait and the logo of my company, Horizon Forensic Solutions, and the applause from the room filled my ears like a victorious symphony. Just a few hours ago, I was sitting in my charcoal sedan, parked in front of the imposing wrought iron gates of the club. It was a typical Tuesday morning, the kind of sunny day when the wealthy members here would engage in their leisurely activities. The security guard, a young man named Ethan, stepped out of his booth with an air of bored authority. He glanced at my car, my tires, and finally, reluctantly, into my eyes before holding up his hand to signal me to leave. I calmly presented my invitation for the ownership transition meeting, but Ethan was unmoved. He insisted I wasn't on the list, and just then my family emerged. Victoria, dressed in an expensive designer dress, sneered at me as if I were a nuisance. "Kathleen, you're in the wrong place. The library is miles away," she said with a cold laugh. Henry, adjusting his cufflinks, joined in with his own snide remarks, and my mother, Laura, refused to even look me in the eye, muttering for me to leave and not make a scene for my father's sake. But I wasn't going to back down. I demanded that Ethan call the general manager, Mr. Thompson. Victoria scoffed, thinking I was being delusional, but there was a certainty in my voice that made Ethan pause. He radioed Mr. Thompson, and within seconds, the world shifted. Mr. Thompson's voice came over the radio, ordering Ethan to open the gates immediately and escort me to the VIP portico as the guest of honor. As I drove through the gates, I couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. The familiar drive up to the clubhouse, paved with cobblestones that cost a fortune per square foot, brought back a flood of memories. For years, I had been the overlooked one in my family. While they spent their summers relaxing at the club, I was studying in the basement of the public library, working hard to build my career as a forensic auditor. My father, Robert, was a prominent figure in the club, a man who believed in the power of connections and social status. He had always dismissed my work as soulless, telling me that real success came from who you knew, not what you calculated. Henry, on the other hand, was a so-called networker who seemed to do little else but waste his time and the club's resources. And Victoria, the social butterfly, used the club as a platform to showcase her wealth and influence. I parked my car in the VIP spot and walked into the grand ballroom. Mr. Thompson greeted me warmly, and a young assistant handed me a name badge that read Kathleen, Principal. Victoria, still trying to make sense of the situation, whispered condescendingly, asking if I was a school principal. I ignored her and took my seat in the front row, much to my family's shock. When the meeting began, Mr. Thompson took the podium to address the members. He talked about the club's challenges, including a significant drop in membership retention and a rise in operating costs. The screen behind him showed a red line graph, indicating the club's financial decline. As expected, my family thought this was just a routine discussion and that they were safe. Then Mr. Thompson revealed that the club had found a partner, Horizon Forensic Solutions. When the logo of my company appeared on the screen and my portrait followed, the gasps from the room were audible. My family was completely blindsided. Victoria dropped her champagne flute, Henry looked like he'd been punched, and my mother stared at the floor in shame. I took the stage and began to speak. I shared my humble beginnings, living in a tiny apartment, surviving on instant noodles while working as a contract auditor. I explained how I built Horizon Forensic Solutions, a forensic algorithm that could detect fraud and kickbacks in financial transactions. I told the members that I had discovered the club was being drained from the inside due to a culture of unchecked privilege. I pointed out the inflated landscaping costs, the mismanaged kitchen renovation, and the pattern of preferential treatment for certain vendors. My family, who had been living off the club's resources through kickbacks and padded contracts, finally realized the truth. Victoria, who had been the chair of the social committee, had approved a vendor owned by her college roommate and received kickbacks in return. Henry, the head of maintenance, had been taking a cut from the landscaping company. And my father, Robert, had used his influence to bypass the standard vetting process for new members, causing the club to lose a significant amount of money. After my speech, I announced a series of changes at the club. I would retain the service staff, increase their wages, and implement a digital booking and billing system. I also established a scholarship program to give opportunities to young professionals, regardless of their financial background. And most importantly, I ordered a mandatory forensic audit of all club accounts dating back 5 years. My family was in a state of panic. They tried to defend themselves, but I had the evidence. In the following days, I worked with my team to gather more proof of their wrongdoings. Victoria tried to smear my reputation in the club, painting me as a cold-hearted corporate raider. Robert called in his old friends, hoping to pressure the board to stop the audit. But I released a memo highlighting the club's regulatory risks, and the members quickly turned their backs on my family. Finally, the owner of the landscaping company, Mr. Lewis, came to me with evidence of Henry's extortion attempts. When I confronted my family with this proof, they started to turn on each other. Henry blamed Victoria, Victoria blamed Henry, and Robert tried to distance himself from the whole mess. I told them that they could remain members of the club, but there would be no more special treatment. I also gave them a choice: pay back the money they had embezzled and resign from all their positions, or face the Georgia Bureau of Financial Investigation. As I walked out of the club that day, I felt a sense of closure. I had taken back the power from my family, and I was ready to build a new future for the Rosewood Country Club. My phone rang, and it was a potential client from a large corporation. They were impressed by what I had done at the club and wanted me to handle their audit. I looked at the horizon, knowing that I was no longer the overlooked daughter. I was the architect of my own success.